A wounded elephant, blood running down its leg, walks straight past its own herd and toward a human village. It could run anywhere, any direction that isn't toward the one species that hunts, traps, and kills more elephants than any predator on Earth. It picks us anyway. Dolphins have pushed drowning swimmers to shore. Wild birds have landed on strangers' shoulders mid-flight, wing broken, and refused to leave. Deer have walked up to hikers and simply stood there, letting hands touch open wounds. Every one of these animals had a working fear instinct 5 minutes earlier. Something happened to make them override it, and it's not one reason. It's 4. And the last one explains something about your own house pet that will completely change how you see them. Here's the part that shouldn't make sense. Fear of humans isn't of learned behavior in most wild animals. It's wired in before birth. A fawn that has never seen a person will still freeze at the smell of one. That fear kept their ancestors alive for millions of years. So, when an injured animal walks toward a human, it isn't confused. It isn't broken. Something in its threat assessment system has been deliberately overridden. In 2016, marine biologists studying humpback whale entanglements documented something researchers hadn't expected. Whales caught in fishing gear consistently stopped struggling and went still the moment rescue boats approached, the opposite of every other human interaction on record. Handlers called it the switch. One moment, panic. The next, total stillness, as if the whale understood exactly what was happening. Here's what's actually happening biologically. Pain and exhaustion trigger a massive drop in cortisol reactivity. The stress hormones that normally scream run get overridden by a more urgent survival calculation. Conserve energy. Stop fighting. Wait. It's the same freeze response you'd see in a human in shock. The nervous system isn't choosing to trust you. It's simply out of other options, but that still doesn't explain the ones who actively approach. A trapped whale going still is one thing. A wounded animal walking a mile toward the smell of wood smoke is something else entirely. And that's where it gets stranger, because these animals aren't approaching just any large, unfamiliar creature. They are approaching, statistically, the most dangerous species on the planet. Here's the number that should stop you. Humans kill more large mammals per year than every other predator on Earth combined. We are, by every measurable standard, the most lethal species alive to almost every other animal, an injured wild. Animals choose us anyway. A 2019 field study tracking elephant behavior in human-adjacent territories in Kenya found that injured elephants were significantly more likely to move toward human settlements than uninjured herd members, despite settlements being the primary source of the very injuries being tracked. The elephants weren't avoiding the danger. They were walking toward it. Think about how insane that is for a second. Imagine being attacked by the only creature on Earth capable of ending your life from 100 meters away, and your instinct, while bleeding, is to go find more of them. Why would evolution allow that? Because somewhere in an injured animal's calculation, human unpredictability stops being the threat and becomes the opportunity. Predators kill efficiently and leave. Humans, uniquely among predators, sometimes don't. We build shelters. We carry water. Every wild animal that has ever watched a human from a distance has also, at some point, watched one behave in a way no predator ever would, caring for something weaker than itself. That memory, even a distant, half-formed one, is apparently enough to flip the switch when there's nothing left to lose. But recognition alone isn't the full story either, because the moment an animal decides to approach, something else takes over completely, something that has nothing to do with logic. Here's what most people get wrong. They assume an injured animal approaching a human is making a calculated decision. It isn't. It's running on a completely different operating system than the one it uses when healthy. Veterinary behaviorists call it appeasement behavior, a suite of instincts that activates specifically during vulnerability. Lowered ears, averted eyes, stillness, slower movement. These aren't random symptoms of pain. They are a specific behavioral package that evolved for exactly one purpose: to signal I am not a threat to anything nearby, human or animal. Here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. This exact behavioral package is nearly identical across species that share no common ancestor. In over 60 million years, a wolf, a deer, and a dolphin, none of which evolved this instinct together, all produce almost the same submission signals when injured. That's not a coincidence. That's convergent evolution, 3 completely separate species, independently arriving at the exact same solution because it works. And it works on us specifically. Human brains are wired to respond to distress signals across species lines. The same neural circuitry that makes a crying baby unbearable to ignore lights up, weaker but present when we see an animal in visible pain. Researchers studying interspecies empathy have found this response is largely involuntary. You don't choose to feel it. Your nervous system does it for you. So, here's the full picture. An injured animal's fear system shuts down, replaced by appeasement signals it didn't choose to send, aimed at a species whose brain is wired to respond to exactly those signals, whether it wants to or not. Neither side is deciding this consciously. Both sides are just running ancient code. And that code didn't start with wild elephants and dolphins. It started thousands of years ago in a much smaller, much hungrier animal, and it's still living in your house right now. Every dog on Earth is descended from wolves. Every single one. And the leading scientific theory for how that happened isn't what most people assume for decades. The popular story was that humans captured wolf pups and tamed them. But genetic and archaeological evidence increasingly points somewhere stranger. The wolves chose us first. Researchers studying the self-domestication hypothesis argue that the earliest protodogs were wolves too injured, too old, or too weak to keep up with the hunting pack, animals living on the edge of survival, drawn toward human camps by discarded food and, crucially, by safety from stronger wolves. The boldest, calmest of these wolves, the ones with the lowest fear response toward humans, survived best near camps. Every generation, they got slightly friendlier, slightly less afraid. Over thousands of years, that single trait, reduced fear during vulnerability, became a permanent, inheritable feature of the species. In other words, the entire existence of dogs may be the direct evolutionary result of this exact behavior, an animal's fear switch flipping off around humans at the moment it needed help. Most thought that means the same override happening in a wounded elephant walking toward a village happened, generation after generation, and the ancestors of the dog sleeping in your house right now. You didn't just adopt a pet. You are living with the end result of tens of thousands of years of animals, betting their lives on the idea that humans sometimes choose to help instead of harm. Asterisk for layers. The fear switch flips under extreme stress, replacing panic with stillness. Injured animals target humans specifically, not despite our danger, but partly because of a buried memory that we're also capable of care. Appeasement behavior takes over instinctively, triggering a response in the human brain we don't consciously control. And that exact mechanism, repeated over tens of thousands of years, is very possibly the reason dogs exist at all. Most people assume wild animals see humans as one thing, a threat, permanently, unconditionally. The truth is the opposite. Somewhere in the deepest layer of animal instinct, there's a second file, one that only opens when there's nothing left to lose. And it says something surprising. This species, sometimes, helps every injured animal that has ever walked toward a human was making the same bet your dog's ancestors made thousands of years ago, that this terrifying species might, just this once, choose to help. Coming next, ancient humans had a method for treating pain that modern medicine only recently admitted actually worked. Subscribe so you don't miss it. One question for you. If a wounded wild animal walked up to you right now, what do you think you'd do? Tell me below.